Intro to A&P. We are going over the pituitary gland today and the hormones that it releases, as well as the other glands that it stimulates. Because if you remember, the pituitary gland is our master gland and it controls many other things. You can ignore those two red dots for now. It'll make sense here in a minute. But we're just going to be filling this picture out today in class. I believe it is page 3 of your notes packet. You may want to have different colors to write, or even just like highlight or add a little dot next to some of these. I use different colors to try to distinguish between the name of the gland, and then I use blue to represent the hormone, and then I've been using kind of like a purple color to represent its job. What does it do? You can pick whatever color you want, though. Those aren't significant. All right, so what are we looking at here? So you might write that this is the front side, the anterior side. If we were looking at this would be the back side of the pituitary gland here in my brain. And it is attached to the brain at the hypothalamus. You remember the hypothalamus is important because it connects to my nervous system and my endocrine system. So it's in both systems. And as we talked last time, we saw that the hypothalamus releases this thing called the releasing hormone. So that's what this arrow here is representing, releasing hormone going into this structure here. So I just also boxed this because that's what this arrow is representing. All right. So what the hypothalamus stimulates with its releasing hormones is the anterior pituitary. So that's why it's important to know this is the front, because anterior means front. Anterior pituitary is on the front side of this gland. Now, if you're unsure, like your homework assignment, this is flip-flopped. The anterior pituitary is always larger than the posterior pituitary. So that's one way to always remember which one's which. Is anterior is the larger of the two. All right, so we're going to go through each of the different hormones that, once stimulated by the hypothalamus, the anterior pituitary releases. Now, because this is a master gland, it tends to be a tropic cascade, meaning it's going to stimulate other hormones and other glands to release their hormones. And so it's kind of this hypothalamus tells the anterior pituitary to release this, which affects other body parts. And you can see we're going to talk about our bones and muscles, the mammary glands, testes and ovaries, the thyroid, and your adrenal gland. So the first one we're going to talk about is the growth hormone, abbreviated GH for short. We're going to use lots of abbreviations in this unit. So the growth hormone stimulates growth. Easy as that. So it tells your bones and muscles to grow. And so it's going to encourage mitosis of those cells. The hormone that stimulates the mammary glands is abbreviated PRL. PRL stands for prolactin. And when you see that word lactin, you should think lactate, because this is what creates breast milk. After a woman's given birth, PRL would stimulate the breast milk to make milk. And then we have two, LH and FSH. It stands for the luteinizing hormone and the follicle stimulating hormone. I didn't write hormone out, just H, because it's getting redundant. So both of these are going to stimulate our reproductive structures, if you're male or female, testes or ovaries. So in both cases, the sex hormone production is going to occur, or gamete production. So it's going to stimulate your testes or ovaries to make your sex hormones, testosterone, androgens, or estrogen, as well as tell your cells to make gametes, so your egg or sperm cells. All right, then we have the TSH, or thyroid stimulating hormone, and as the name suggests, it stimulates the thyroid. Okay. It's going to tell your thyroid to make its hormones T3 and T4. Their T4 is thyroxine and T3 is triiodine, blah, blah, blah. Right? It's a really long one. We usually use these as abbreviations for those guys. But both of these hormones are important for metabolism. So somebody who might have a metabolism issue could have a thyroid problem, but you could also have an issue with your anterior pituitary because it's not secreting the right substances either. And then the last one from the anterior pituitary is ACTH. This one's a mouthful. Adrenocorticotropic hormone. And this, if you look at this word here, adrenocortico, it is stimulating my adrenal cortex. So it kind of has, so AC, think adrenal cortex. And that word tropic just means that it's a stimulating hormone. It stimulates something else to release something else, which is exactly what it does. It stimulates your adrenal cortex to release cortisol and aldosterone, these important hormones of our adrenal gland. So all of these, right, every single one of these are secreted by the anterior pituitary, and many of them, right, at least these four, not the first two, these four all stimulate another gland to basically release other hormones. ACTH tells the adrenal cortex to release its hormones. TSH tells the thyroid to release its hormones. LH and FSH tell your testes and ovaries to release their hormones. And so we call these tropic hormones, hormones stimulating other hormones. So that's the anterior pituitary. It's got obviously a lot of stuff going on. Now, the back side of the pituitary gland here is called the posterior pituitary, and it has two hormones that it releases. The first one is OT, or oxytocin, and this one will only kick in women who are pregnant and ready for childbirth. So it's the hormone that stimulates the contractions of childbirth as well as ejection of breast milk. So women who've recently given birth to a child, their breasts will swell with milk, and oxytocin is the hormone that continues to produce that milk. Now, prolactin is what makes it. Oxytocin is what essentially ejects it from the body. And then the second hormone from the posterior pituitary is called ADH, Antidiuretic Hormone. And this one conserves water in your kidneys. If you had a problem with ADH, you would be incredibly thirsty and you would be urinating out a lot of water. In fact, there's a disease which causes incredible thirst, which is called diabetes insipidus, not related to the diabetes you're familiar with insulin, but they both have the same kind of first name. But this is like very, very thirsty disease because ADH is what tells you to conserve water in your kidneys. Now, the hypothalamus, as you can see in this picture, gives releasing hormone to tell the anterior pituitary to release all of these. The posterior pituitary is not the same. And this is what I want you guys to draw on your picture here. Here's these little red dots. There are these structures, okay, called neurosecretory cells, and it is more of a nerve and hormone impulse that gets sent from the hypothalamus to stimulate the posterior pituitary. So it's more of a zap than a hormone being released to tell it to release its hormone. So the backside, the posterior pituitary, gets zapped to release its hormones, whereas the hypothalamus has a hormone that tells the other hormones to be released. So there is a difference in how the anterior and posterior pituitary get stimulated, but they both get stimulated by the hypothalamus. Just with the posterior, it's through neurosecretory cells, and in the hypothalamus, it's using hormones. Now on your homework assignment, you're going to see this picture. Again, here, this would be the front side, because notice here's the anterior pituitary that is larger, and then the posterior pituitary is this yellow structure back here. Each of these labels you will be labeling are either referring to like what's being released here from my hypothalamus. B is pointing to the anterior pituitary. And then each of these, C, D, E, F, G, and H. These are referring to the hormones that get released. So it's very similar to this picture. Okay. And let me know if you have questions on that assignment. You can always edit your answer. And then this picture is showing you the hypothalamus and how it stimulates. In this case, E is pointing to my posterior pituitary. C is the anterior, it's larger. And so we're referring to these little structures that stimulate my posterior pituitary, and then the hormones that get released from my posterior pituitary is the F and G down here. So you'll see that on your homework. Should hopefully be straightforward. And you, as always, let me know if you have any questions. And we are wrapping things up because we have some seniors in this class. We are nearing the end, so be expecting some information from me about end of year timeline and etc. Thank you so very much. I hope you guys have a great day and are having a good week.